I'm a neo-reactionary absolutist. I believe in a absolute world order, organized in a particular way.
When you're looking at a government is a corporation that owns a country. It just is. It's the same thing.
I'm Peter Thiel. I support people who are building new things. I'm not a politician, but neither is Donald Trump. And it's time to rebuild America.
Anything we can do to help this go along, and we're going to be there for you. And you'll call my people, you'll call me. It doesn't make any difference. We have no formal chain of command.
Hello, welcome and Happy New Year. We're going to do a series of videos here, all starting from the beginning of the pandemic, all surrounding the anti-lockdown, anti-vaccine and the neo-reactionary infiltration of that movement, and where it's gone from, where it's heading, and how I knew where to look. So back in April, I made a video, April 2020, I made a video exposing the neo-reactionary ideology. This is the trailer for it. It was making this video that first alerted to me the kind of way that the protests were going to go and how they were going to evolve. Who was responsible, and how it came, and how it's come from the government and their flying monkeys, people who are trying to stroke the government's ego, and the billionaire kind of backers as well.
Reduce the world's population to 500 million.
But when I mean a call, I mean a population management strategy. I don't mean people running around killing little African babies or injecting people with it.
Bottom line is, when I hear that, I think globalist, and I think New World Order.
And I must level with the British public, and many more families are going to lose loved ones before their time.
So basically what the point is of that is, there's not going to be some mad genocide where people are going to go around killing people with vaccines. That's just the conspiracy that is spread by this insidious network to hide from the fact that the real conspiracy is that, just like COVID, the world is going to be mismanaged through the climate catastrophe. Basically, the pandemic is the warm-up act for the main chaos, which is climate breakdown. And if they're able to gaslight us to the point where no one can really take it anymore, the mismanagement, then it'll be much easier for them to get away with the mismanagement of the climate crisis when that really gets into full swing. This is how conspiracy breeds, and it's how the establishment uses those conspiracies to distract us from the conspiracy facts that they are negligent, downright criminal, in the way that hundreds of thousands of people have died of COVID in the UK, and in other countries there's been a fraction of that number, especially like New Zealand and Australia, Germany, for instance. It was obvious to me when I first met Ralph that he was on Boris's side. When he was hailing Boris, and he didn't do that just the once, he did that multiple times over a long period of time. So let's just see that again. That's just a clip from a debate that me and him had at Speaker's Corner. Let's hear it in his own words, because basically what I've just said is basically coming from the horse's mouth. So this is from the Beware of the Neo-Reactionaries video that I made.
And obviously as nationalists, it's a very exciting time for us. And this correlates perfectly with our anti-open borders message and our segregation messages. So yeah, we love it. We're already looking at ways to play with memes for Corona Nats and Corona nationalism. So we'll be releasing those soon enough, man. So
the deaths of thousands of people, and the main thing that you're thinking about is how you can use it for your political agenda.
Yeah, and I think Ralph admitted it now, which is, at least you're very honest about it. You know, you're going to use the deaths of people just to score some points against the left.
Well, it's just
Yes.
It kind of says it all, doesn't it? I don't really need to say anything else.
Well, yeah. And
The government's response to the pandemic makes a lot more sense seen through the eyes of a neo-reactionary.
And I must level with you, level with the British public. More families, many more families, are going to lose loved ones before their time.
So they have it straight from the horse's mouth, straight from his dear leader's mouth as well. Quite blasé about the fact that he's going to use the pandemic to play with memes for the nationalists, basically his puppets. And Boris Johnson echoes the sentiment that he doesn't really care that many of our loved ones are going to die. Additionally to that, one of the people who is most responsible for the chaos that we're seeing in society today is Dominic Cummings. And again, let's hear, like, I don't want to hang on Ralph's words too much, and I've tried to like ignore the twat for quite a while now. But so, like, if it wasn't for Ralph, I wouldn't have known where to look. I wouldn't have known about NRX. And to be honest, I don't think anyone would, because everyone I speak to about this haven't got a clue what the fucking NRX is. So I did a little chat interview with Simon Sideways. He's a Tommy Robinson supporter fascist. He's actually been at the forefront of the anti-lockdown protests. I think it was the first one on Trafalgar Square, where we'll come to it in a bit, but he's there linking arms with William Coleshill before I even knew who William Coleshill was, before he made any videos. But let's see what Ralph has got to say about, as he reviews this chat that I had with him.
I don't know. I don't watch
Dominic Cummings runs the Conservative Party think tank, the GQ. He's doing what people like me do, Spurgees. He's using data. And obviously, listeners going, well, Dominic must be a Nazi. He's got to be a Nazi.
I mean, I don't know what he actually looks like. I wouldn't be able to tell you if, like, you know, you point him out on a photo.
Let me put it this way. He looks exactly like Lister doesn't. There you go.
Oh.
Danger Mouse.
I probably know him because obviously I don't watch the news either.
Anyway, he subscribes to neo-reactionary thinking and accelerationist thinking, very much like Ralph Massimani.
Right, can you describe that for people?
Say his name 3 times and he shall appear.
Hello, Guten Abend. Yes, he does. But he does subscribe. Dominic is very smart. He understands that he's going to have to fight as a nationalist. He understands, therefore, that the cutting-edge thinking politically must be neo-reactionary thinking. Dominic is not stupid. He's hiring smart people who understand neo-reactionary modeling and thinking, like moi, right? And obviously, Lister's picked up. They say Ralph is gonna make everyone go far right using accelerationism. And yes, you know I am. Yeah, so suck it up.
So there you have it. Dominic Cummings is going to hire people who understand neo-reactionary thinking, just like Ralph. With him on this show is Madfwaz. Other anti-fascists have called out Madfwaz and made articles about this guy. He's just a kid. He's just a puppet being puppeted by Ralph. He's white, so they'll report on him, like ARC 161. They asked me about Ralph, but they've not reported on him. They've just given him a little mention when they've mentioned Madfwaz, but Ralph's the ringleader here. They don't have anything to say about him. Like I say, they asked me about him. They fished for information basically, and then never reported on him. So make up your own minds what that means. He's there admitting that Dominic Cummings is going to hire people just like Ralph, and it's nothing new. Dominic Cummings put a job advert asking for an assortment of weirdos and misfits. And that led to the hiring of the NRX apologist Andrew Sabisky, where he wrote, the Dark Enlightenment is a silly hyperbolic term for what should be fairly uncontroversial at this point. And The Guardian adds, yet most people would be disturbed by its core NRX ideas. And this is possibly one of the only mentions of the NRX in the UK media. There's no explanation of what these NRX ideas are and why we should be disturbed by them. If these ideas have infiltrated our government, then I think it's very important that the media actually tells us what the ideology is that our government is running running on. And we can see that this ideology is also subscribed to by billionaires like Peter Thiel, and he's there doing basically what Dominic Cummings has done in the UK, but Peter Thiel has done the same thing to Trump in America. So what Dominic Cummings has done to Boris, Peter Thiel has done to Trump, basically. So at the crux of it, what is this ideology all about? It can be broken down simply like this, taken from Mencius Moldbug's blog. First step, you become worthy. Second step, you accept power. And then third step, you rule. In Dominic Cummings' case, he set up the Leave campaign. He became worthy when he won the Brexit referendum and his campaign. And then when he realised that Boris Johnson was going to be running for Prime Minister and he needed help, Dominic Cummings went to him, and we'll see it in his own words, shall we? How Dominic puts it, because he had an interview with Laura Kuenssberg where he pretty much describes how he used Boris Johnson as a tool to get his agenda done, and how he's working with this shadowy network of people who are fine-tuning this strategy to make sure everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing. Another quote, indirect quote from Ralph Maslamani. So let's see how he described that with Laura Kuenssberg here.
If you felt he wasn't up to it, as you clearly did, why on earth then was it the right thing to push him to be Prime Minister? Why was that the right thing to do?
There are many people I know personally who I'd much prefer to see in number 10, but that wasn't a practical possibility for me. I also thought that precisely because Boris knows that in lots of ways he obviously shouldn't be Prime Minister, he knows that he needs help, he knows that he needs to bring in various people to help him, that also provides an opportunity to push the country in a much more positive direction.
What you're saying, he was so useless that you were able to get him to do what you wanted?
I mean, partly, yes.
So he's basically admitting to puppeteering Boris, using Boris as the puppet.
Or that he didn't know what he was doing.
Accepting power, basically.
But he did know that he needed help.
But can you hear yourself say that?
A guy who wanted us to leave Europe, probably one of the reasons was because he's pushing that it's an unelected, they're unelected bureaucrats when in fact they are elected in the European elections.
That the man that's Prime Minister, who's been chosen by the Tory party and then was elected by the voting public, well, it was great for me because he was so useless in some ways, in your view, that it meant that you could get him to do what you wanted.
Well, I think it's terrible for the country, but I keep trying to stress, you've got to balance up the different possibilities. Is that objectively a good thing for the country? No, it's objectively obviously ludicrous. That's why I've made the argument repeatedly for all kinds of political change, and why actually it was a difficult decision in summer 19. We spent a lot of time calculating, maybe we should just let the Conservative Party go down the toilet. Maybe that would be the best way out, because then it could rebuild something new. Because why are we in the situation with this terrible choice between Johnson and Corbyn? But
it's a complete disrespect for the voters. He doesn't think that Boris Johnson's up for it. He doesn't think Jeremy Corbyn's a good alternative. So instead, he infiltrates Boris Johnson, gets him to agree to some deal where I'll only work for you if I get this. And he's an unelected official. Like he was projecting out at the European Union when they were elected officials that were put there with our EU elections that we used to have when we were in the EU.
From a practical matter, all our options were bad, right? So it's like, which is the least bad option? Well, the least bad option seemed to be exploit the current situation to try and push certain things through and get the country into a better position.
Who's us? Who's we?
Well, me and a network of people, some of us who did the Vote Leave campaign, some of us who did other things.
How many of you? You make it sound this kind of secretive clique. Who?
No, I mean, it's,
half a dozen? A dozen?
A few dozen, maybe.
So he doesn't say who these unelected officials are, but they can be certain to not be elected, I bet. And they're just there using that NRX ideology to infiltrate and to push things and make sure that everyone's supposed to be doing what they're supposed to be doing, in his eyes. Not in the electorate's eyes, but for Dominic Cummings' rich friends. And he would invite these rich friends into the SAGE meetings. So Ben Warner, either Dominic Cummings and Ben Warner should not have been on the SAGE Council. They have no experience in dealing with pandemics. They're not medical experts. He's just a data guy. You can check that out. And so when the contracts are being handed out, instead of going to... So there was a ventilator company who, as soon as they realised that hospitals would need more ventilators to deal with the pandemic, the no-named ventilator company that already had their ventilators tested and they worked, that all they needed was an order and they could make more of them and send them out as quickly as possible. Those emails got ignored because that's not the flashy kind of promotion. They couldn't have made any kind of political capital out of that for their own friends. What instead happened was Dyson got a big contract to design their own ventilators, and obviously the big flashy brand Dyson, British company, oh yeah, playing with nationalist memes, just like Ralph had said earlier, just to gaslight the nation.
Anna, I do want to first start with this very positive note because the British company Dyson has designed a new type of ventilator. How many are they making? How soon will they be available and, of course, operational?
Yeah, the government put out a big call to manufacturers across the UK to help them make more ventilators. Dyson was one of the companies answering that call. They've designed one that they say they can make very fast and they can scale up, they can make a lot. The government ordered 10,000, so they're planning to make that. Plus, they're going to make an additional 5,000 that they're going to donate. 1,000 to the UK, 4,000 internationally. And Rosemary, it being Dyson, maker of those fancy vacuum cleaners and hairdryers, perhaps it'll be quite stylish.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, this is what is needed all over the world. So if they can get that out fast, there might be some other countries knocking at their door.
Eventually, Dyson, I think he gave up that contract, and we just ended up with a shit show, basically. So it didn't actually work out, but obviously with the media being on Boris Johnson's side, it didn't really get reported on that much. And then obviously we see corporations massively increasing their wealth during the pandemic when everybody else is suffering. It's like close down the economy, all the small businesses have to then hope that the state can kind of help them out with the grants that they were offered. But the confidence of the population to leave their homes and use these businesses completely reduced, and instead they were buying things off Amazon where people were just like, oh, I'm going to be locked up for a few months, so I'm going to buy a laptop or whatever. So Amazon just made a massive killing from the pandemic due to the way it was mishandled. So also from America, we've got Steve Bannon, who's another kind of Dominic Cummings character, and he met with Nigel Farage. This would have been before the pandemic maybe, but let's see what he had to say to Nigel Farage.
If you're interested, what I'd like to do is set up something, and I'll fund it somehow, that I think you're the perfect guy. We help knit together this populist nationalist movement throughout the world. Because guys in Egypt are coming to me, the Modi's guys in India, Duterte, you know, and we get Orban and even thing, and we're somehow some sort of convening authority for conferences and stuff like that, so we can get ideas out there. I mean, do you think that's a worthwhile thing?
Yeah,
or you think nobody's got it. Nobody's doing it right now.
So Steve Bannon basically offers Nigel Farage to lead this UK version of this NRX network. And if we look at who Nigel Farage works for now, it's a Green employer, weird for a UKIP guy, owned by a QAnon believer. John Mappin, who chairs Dutch Green Business Group, has funded conservative political causes. Who's John Mappin? Well, John Mappin is a guy he owns this Camelot Castle. Here it is, flying the QAnon flag. Here's John Mappin here with James Melville, anti-lockdown, anti-vaccine talking head on social media. Here's John Mappin with Piers Corbyn in his castle. Here he is with Lawrence Fox, another person involved in this network. It's difficult when people ask who's funding this. It's difficult because there's so many nefarious people with their fingers in this chaotic pot that it's difficult just to single one person out. You've got John Mappin here. You've got many, many think tanks who are all pushing this chaos to basically destroy any confidence that the population has in government, in government processes and our institutions like the NHS, so that capital and private influence can then come in and save the day. Like, the government couldn't really cope with the pandemic, so Amazon came and saved everyone's lives by delivering all their goods, and you had kind of like Uber Eats and Deliveroo coming in to deliver people's foods and that kind of thing. So these companies made massive profits in the pandemic, whereas small businesses, pubs and the arts and entertainment industry all suffered big time. And John Mappin is interestingly found in Jeffrey Epstein's Little Black Book. So is he got something to hide that he's now doing this because of that, or is he a genuine believer? It's difficult to say when someone appears in these kind of networks, these Epstein networks. It's like once you're in that network, you can't be trusted. It's just impossible to trust these people because who knows what they really believe? Who knows whose thumb's over their head? So if we come to the protests, you can see that they're just like an anti-lockdown, anti-vaccine protest. It's just there's 3 Trump flags on display here. There's the Gadsden flag. If we see it there in the window, this is where they're kind of attempting to pull off some sort of insurrection-style infiltration of a shopping centre. There's the Nick Sundin is there, right front and centre, trying to film things or Pied Piper people into the building. Like half of, well, I'd say half, a lot of the protesters actually did get through the doors before the police were able to kind of like quell the chaos slightly. As well as the Gadsden flags, we've got these mock Nazi banners where instead of the swastika, we've got this COVID symbol, but you can see like the German old lettering on the top there. I couldn't really make out what that said in the footage. It only kind of like slipped past on the camera, so it's very difficult to make out exactly what that said. But yeah, we've also got the White Pendragon, and that is also here. Patriotic Alternative, an actual far-right, Hitler-loving, supporting Nazi group. There's the flag there. And you can see this is when Haiku Ku was doing a speech to this crowd of fascists after these people would have been attacking him at Speaker's Corner when Haiku Ku was supposedly opposing Tommy Robinson's speech there. This is a week after the silent vigil where we saw Haiku Ku directly responsible, like not solely responsible, but he was the catalyst of the chaos that happened at the silent vigil. And so when anti-fascists were, some anti-fascists like me, Louise Raw, and various others were calling out this back in August, like, look, they just had a massive rally at Trafalgar Square. Here's a British Union of Fascist flag by this notorious guy here. we were told, oh no, it's just one flag. Don't worry about it. It's not that bad. But we'll see. We'll see. In fact, I'll show you it now. I think it's yes, it is this one. So let's have a quick look at this footage. So here, there's William Coleshill with a British flag. Before he'd made any videos directly in the centre of the crowd, he will show up again in a second. There's Gavin Malone right there. William Coleshill. And there he is linking arms with that Reverend Simon Sideways that I told you about earlier. So this was September 2020. So like I say, before William Coleshill, Sam English in actual interview, before they even had their own channels set up, they were there at this massive protest on Trafalgar Square fronted by Kate Shemirani. So there was recently Sadie Graham, or not so recently, quite a few months ago, Sadie Graham. In fact, it was a while ago she was first seen, but she's back now with her orange hair, hugging another person who was at the silent vigil, directly responsible for the chaos there, Fiona Hine. She's an ex-BNP member, along with her boyfriend, Matt Single. There's plenty more in these bingo cards here that you can find and research and look out for if you choose to. We had Piers Corbyn stroking the ego of Mark Collette. He's called him his friend on Twitter.
Good ongoing program to everyone else as well. Okay, all the best. You take care.
So to say for these anti-fascist groups to minimize the fact that the far right were all over this from the start, make of that what you will. I'm not going to name any names for now. If you want me to name well, I've named one before, but there are others who denied the reality that we were all seeing. If you'd like me to let you know who they are in future episodes, let me know, and I'll think about exposing these nefarious anti-fascist accounts that just denied the reality. They can't, and when anti-fascists can't spot the fascists, then it's kind of a worrying time, I believe. So we've got this guy, another one of Ralph's flying monkeys. He's called Nick Cotton, or Unwashed, and he's complaining that he's spent most of his time with Piers Corbyn.
I'm not sure why that hasn't happened yet, because we've been walking along the same streets for a year. I was saying this to someone the other day. I think Piers Corbyn is the person I've hung out with the most in 2021, apart from my parents.
Can you imagine going back in time and someone telling you that the person you're going to hang out with the most, apart from your family, is going to be Jeremy Corbyn's brother?
It's not just that. It's the fact that he's like 70, and I go to stand in the park a lot, and the average age in my group is pushing 60. So, like, definitely one thing before I go would be to say, like, millennials, get off your asses. Where are you?
I don't believe millennials are the type of people to be manipulated or puppeted by an old climate change denying crank like Piers, an anti-Semitic Nazi crank like Piers Corbyn. But yeah, like these nefarious far right characters are all over it. He used to gripe, like try and get like the talk about the Great Replacement, the conspiracy theory of the Great Replacement, or the 14 Words, another Nazi kind of symbol meme, they would phone up en masse radio stations to get these talking points platformed. And I had a little chat with him on Twitter the other day, and he's telling me that I'm lying. He doesn't have any connection to these groups, and it's like, dude, it's all over the internet. I've seen it with my own eyes. Stop denying the reality. Stop lying and pretending you're something that you're not. So coming back to William Coleshill, here he is pictured with his Conservative sticker on, I think that is, and with Boris Johnson. William Coleshill is an ex-Tory councillor who was removed from his position for racist remarks. And here he is hounding Michael Gove. Here he is again and again. And if we come to the next thing, Michael Gove is, let's see what he said about this is taken from my The Psychopathy of Far-Right Politics, and how Michael Gove is just a flying monkey of Boris Johnson. And this is so telling, this little quote he gave to Boris Johnson's biographer. So back in 1985, so Michael Gove, a Scottish fresher in 1985, so what's that? Almost 40 years ago, told Johnson's biographer, Andrew Gimson, the first time I saw him was in the Union Bar. He seemed like a kindly Oxford character, but he was really there like a great basking shark, waiting for freshers to swim towards him, Gove told Gimson. I was Boris's stooge. I became a votary of the Boris cult. Now, I didn't know what votary was when I reported on this first time. I just Googled it now. And a person such as a monk or nun who has made vows of dedication to religious service, a devoted follower, adherent, or advocate of someone or something. So when you join the NRX, when you agree to join it, you can't, if you don't like it, you can't just leave. It's a one-way trip. Like, if you try and leave, you become their enemy number one. It's just a one way. Once you agree to give up democracy, which is the main the main idea for the NRX, they want to remove any sort of progressive idea from society and just have a hierarchical structure where whatever the boss says, whatever the boss says, you've got to do. And so Michael Gove is just a flying monkey of Boris. And Boris, as we heard earlier, was just a flying monkey of Dominic Cummings. The media needs to do a deep dive into Dominic Cummings, into his nefarious networks, his secret networks that he's hinting at but not being very open about. And they need to expose that, because that is criminal. That's that's conspiracy to rob the nation of billions of pounds that go to his mates when it should be going to the state, to the NHS, to our schools and to our small businesses, to and workers who can't work, people who need sick pay because they're they have to lock themselves up for 14 days when they have a positive test or they get COVID. That money needs to go to the grassroots. It doesn't need to go to the billionaires for them to dish it out as they see fit, to buy PPE that doesn't work and other medical equipment that their mates have no experience in dealing with. And that's basically what's happening. I've had so many people telling me that I'm bonkers for calling like this government a Nazi government, but Charles Walker's out there using milk as a white supremacist dog whistle. Like, I'm sorry, but you can't just define Nazis on their willingness to put Jews into concentration camps. The first victims of the Nazis were their political opponents, which were socialists and communists. And that is what we're seeing now. We're seeing a massive Red Scare and a massive discrediting of our social state, all with the intent that their mates can eventually come in and privatize even more of the NHS, if not the whole thing, so that then you either can afford healthcare like in America, or you can't, and we make ourselves bankrupt in order to save our lives. We have to sell our homes in order for cancer treatment or births even. So if we want more links to this network, we can see that there's Steve Bannon, Curtis Yarvin, and Milo Yiannopoulos. Here we've got video reveals Steve Bannon's links to Boris Johnson. So new evidence suggesting close links between Boris Johnson and Donald Trump's controversial former campaign manager Steve Bannon can be revealed, calling into question the former foreign secretary's previous denials of an association with the influential far-right activist. And he claimed that he helped Boris Johnson's resignation speech as foreign secretary. So that's before he was even made prime minister. Steve Bannon has got the ear of Boris Johnson and he's puppeting him around because Boris Johnson doesn't care about anything but his own ego and just making sure that he's okay. And again, it's nothing new. This is a white supremacist government, no doubt about it. Like, people were reporting that back in 2019. British imperialist white supremacy meets its Confederate offspring. And the fact that this is going unreported on in the media is just a massive scandal, while hundreds of thousands of our most vulnerable are dying from the mismanagement of this pandemic. So if, like I say, this is just the warm-up act for when the climate change happens. There's going to be, sea level's going to rise. People aren't going to be able to grow the crops that they used to be able to. People are going to have to move from their homes. There's going to be a massive amount of climate refugees. And if they can prepare us to not care about the COVID deaths, then when the climate emergency hits, then people are also going to switch off from that. And we see them like slowly now pivoting from this kind of anti-lockdown and anti-COVID message to next it'll be climate lockdowns and there'll be energy shortages, and they're just trying to control the narrative about the climate crisis and completely kind of switch it on its head. We all need to take action, and we can only take action with the help of our government who are on board and sticking to their promises that they've made in previous declarations, like the Paris Agreement and that kind of thing. So that's not going to happen. Politicians are, by definition, in it for themselves. They're ego driven. They need to get so many votes to win. They need to be popular. They need to be approachable. They need to be all these things that doesn't make them good at necessarily organizing society. It just makes them good at winning elections, and then once they've won that election, they can do what the fuck they want and get paid by whoever wants to pay them and manipulate them into building a world in billionaires' eyes instead of a world that cares and looks after everybody. So we need a citizens' assembly to solve this crisis. And it's not just a climate crisis. This is a political crisis. We have one of the oldest democracies in the world, and it needs updating. It is not fit for purpose. We need something that works for the people, and that can only be done by a citizens' assembly that is done by, for, and of the people. So this is my preview of a more in-depth review of the conspiracies surrounding the anti-lockdown movement, the anti-vaccine protests, and all those things. And we're going to go from we're going to go into it in a bit more detail from my perspective. And one of the reasons I'm making this is because people are being removed from Twitter at the moment on the left who are calling this kind of stuff out. So I've already backed up all my tweets, but I'm going to extra back them up by just reviewing the past year or two and going from like how it started to how it's finished to where it's going to. So I've already started preparing that here, and that'll be coming up. I'll probably do it every 2 weeks, maybe every month, in between other various projects that I'm doing. So yeah, thanks for watching, and Happy New Year again, and laters.
I'm a neo-reactionary absolutist. I believe in a absolute world order, organized in a particular way.
When you're looking at a government is a corporation that owns a country. It just is. It's the same thing.
I'm Peter Thiel. I support people who are building new things. I'm not a politician, but neither is Donald Trump. And it's time to rebuild America.
Anything we can do to help this go along, and we're going to be there for you. And you'll call my people, you'll call me. It doesn't make any difference. We have no formal chain of command.